Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's our chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Starr, and today my distinguished guests are Dr. Ken Regan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on. It looks like night here in Buffalo. We have a thunderstorm. So
We had beautiful day in Toronto just until a couple of hours ago. The situation started to change to follow Buffalo weather, probably. And I would like to introduce James Ida from Ida Foundation. I want to say Jim Ida Foundation, but that's not true. It's Ida Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Thank you for having me, Sasha. I really appreciate it. Menlo Park, California. It's dry right now. We had a wet.
Okay, you're in different world,
Yes.
obviously.
yeah.
However, I'm expecting also Dr. Milan Sombra to show up, but we'll see whether he will or not, because I wanted to talk about upcoming Collingwood Chess Festival. And this
I was noted by that. Of course, we could also talk about Toronto getting the candidates, but
yes,
next
that's
year.
another development. So Toronto is getting on the chess map, right?
Unbelievable. That is a big deal.
It
Yeah.
is. It is very big deal, of course. It's two premier tournaments. Of course, the Collingwood Chess Festival is a different category. It's kind of it's held, at least last year, I remember, in a very pleasant resort in Collingwood. Beautiful setup. You can enjoy yourself for 3 days, and I think this year there will be pretty good attendance, because this type of tournaments there are very few anywhere in the world. Because when you have small tournaments, say could be 100 people maybe, and nice resort, beautiful community, very well supported by local officials,
Mhm.
and you play real chess over the board.
Yeah.
It's just incredible feeling, because I really miss that. I do play
Yeah.
online sometimes.
Mhm.
Play over the board, it's almost a treat.
Uh-huh.
In my opinion, this is probably another outlet for chess. Is this real over the board tournaments? I think people would get sooner or later
Mhm.
tired of this online tournaments. Because what's happened online, I had actually a conversation about 2 days ago with a friend of mine. He's a chess arbiter in Boston. And so he was asking my opinion about chess and its development and so on. And I told him, look, let me tell you exactly what I think. Because what I think is that real chess is about, especially with the Carlsen decision not to defend his title,
Yeah.
it's becoming almost, largely speaking, thing of the past. I'm not talking about a purely negative perspective. I would compare it with the situation in classical music or opera or something like this, that all the major works were created 100 and more years ago, and they're beautiful pieces or so on. But you see, they have an edge over chess, because they have a continuation of great interpreters of music and
Right.
theater, and people still show to see conductors or virtuosos or pianists, violinists, others, and the interpretation is a big thing of the classical music. And in chess, you have players, and all this have happened with the top players today. They're all in internet chess. It has very little to do with art, as we witnessed chess of Rubinstein, Capablanca, Fischer, Kasparov. They are, I would qualify them more as gamers rather than chess players. They are
Yeah.
gamers, really. That's all what it is. So it is. I found like myself, but okay, now I'm sort of old man, so maybe younger people taking much more interest in that. I was interested in the during pandemia. I was following all this tournament, and it was quite entertaining for a while. But then I figured out the same players playing the same openings, and there it was, okay, so the one learned the line until 35th move, and another one for 40 moves. So one learned for 40 moves has an advantage. And then it remains to be seen whether it's enough to win the game. Most likely not, so it's a draw. So here's another draw, then they will go into speed games, and then they will go into Armageddon, so somebody will eventually win. And that's what there is to it. Whether it's entertaining enough, I don't know. I lost interest in this tournament. Same players, same games, same opening lines. You can't even, by watching the game, sometimes you can't even distinguish unless you know who are the players. You can't distinguish. They're playing all the same lines, same openings. And if you take Giri, Nepomniachtchi, some other players, they're not playing the same thing. Oh, Ken, Giri is just becoming the executive chief of chess.com. Have you heard the news?
Oh, well, I think that's April Fool's. I'm not sure about that. I was going to make a suggestion. So I am going to send chess.com an email later today and say that I think I found the person who can replace Eric as CEO. Because I think if someone, to be CEO of chess.com, especially with cheating, you have to be good at science communication. So, and one of the, points of science communication is being able to write a coherent blog post on a prominent mathematical blog, such as the one that I co-write.
Yeah.
So I found, we got a guest poster yesterday, actually today, who did a decent job, and I can show you. So I'll share my screen.
Okay.
So at some point, I'm going to suggest that that this be the new CEO of chess.com. So what I did here actually is I signed up for ChatGPT Plus, and I gave it the prompt, write an April Fool's Day post in the style of Richard J. Lipton and Kenneth W. Regan on the blog Girls Law Saturn P, Glenn P. Make it about how ChatGPT represents high absolute but low relative Kolmogorov complexity, and giving some examples. And ChatGPT actually wrote the post and had some pretty scary innovations in the post.
Okay.
Most notably, it got the fact that our blog second paragraph really always begins with today.
Yes.
It gave a reasonable, the title and the subtitle were both its, but not the section headings. And then it came up with the pseudonym Alan Turing Jr. And then it invented a new complexity class, which is something that we complexity theorists have been guilty of doing. So it's satirizing us by coming up with a name of a complexity class. And then it gets actually into April Fool's stuff. Okay, CHP lies between P and NP and is incomparable to both. That's actually pretty advanced. Left the complexity theory community a state of, and then getting to April Fool's, a secret society of computer scientists is working on an even more advanced AI model, GPT-5, and it will put NP in polynomial time.
That's excellent.
Yeah, so this actually came out half decent.
Yeah.
So anyway, so certainly qualified to be the new CEO of chess.com.
Okay.
But Eric posted a funny video, which includes a cameo by, more than a cameo, by Hikaru and Levi Rosman as well. So maybe there is truth. I actually, when I write April Fool's stuff for this blog, I actually write something false that has a lot of truth in it. So
that is the source of good comedy, and it's wonderful that you're doing this, and I would just like to back up to the idea that chess is played out and no longer interesting. And you talk about classical music and its interpretations, and we still run to see Shakespearean plays, and there's many things that never lose interest. And I think it's the drama, the unscripted drama of a chess competition. If we can continue to maintain that, and the American Cup, which just recently ended at the end of March, is a double elimination tournament, and the winners, you would say, were pretty predictable. Nakamura and Crush were the favorites going in by rating, and they won the tournaments. But the double elimination adds another aspect to it. So you have to win to advance, and the first defeat doesn't kill you. You still have chances, and so the question is not so much to me is are the games as interesting as the ones played in the past, as much as is who rises to the top when they're placed into direct competition, and that's always of interest to me. And it's really because I almost wrote off Nakamura as a gamer, making his living on, broadcasting live, and playing Blitz, but he's still a serious contender for the World Championship title, and that's surprising to me that he's able to maintain and still do all of this other stuff. So there's still things to be interesting in the chess world, in classical chess, that is.
Yeah, it's really been a very strong year for him.
Yes.
I still can't get over his last candidate tournament lost game in the last round.
Whereas he can't either.
The draw was just enough for him, and yet he overpressed and lost. I still don't get that.
I don't think he's gotten over it either. But he's making his case. Those are the types of things, Sasha, that it's a fine thread. It's such a the distinction between victory and defeat, or a draw is enough and then you lose because you overpressed. That's dramatic to me. That still retains all the interest.
I agree. I want to tell you one thing is that when this pandemic online tournaments with Carlsen started, at one point, Bet365, that's where I do my sport bettings, they added chess, one of the Carlsen tournaments, and they get odds on Carlsen winning the tournament. It was 1.66. So you could put say $300 and get away with $500, which I did, and it was very easy bet. And I believe that I was not probably the only one who did so, because they never ever.
They did it again. Yeah. They thought that they don't have that figured out. They don't have chess figured out yet.
Well, what should I offer? If I were them, I would offer 1.1 odds on Carlsen winning this tournament, because it's overwhelming proposition, and say 1.2 maximum, no more than that. And if you count how many tournaments of this format Carlsen won, he won probably, 8, maybe 9 out of 10.
Yeah. But it's not like in golf, we used to bet Tiger Woods versus the field, and the field would win most of the time. But in this case, Carlsen's going to win most of the tournaments that he enters. So you would over time make out betting on him. And but they always figure the odds out eventually. If they have enough data, they'll figure it out. And so I would say they have insufficient data now to make the odds correct.
Yeah, there were also other players, of course, on this Giri, Nepomniachtchi. There were several, Ferrucci. Yeah, there were other odds available. Of course, there were much bigger size odds, like 2.5, 3.1. But
probably got most of the money.
Yeah. But you still bet on the winner. And you know who the winner is. Most of the times. So what now? The American Cup is over. The European Chess Championship is over. So now is it candidate the women's tournaments still running out?
Yes, two women's, the candidates and the New Delhi WGP running concurrently. So
what's interesting happening there, Ken?
Well, it's hard to tell what the real story is, because the players have played differential amounts of games. But the so Bibisar Asabayev is leading. I'm not sure by how much. I'd have to look at the pairings, because unfortunately there was the situation where the Muzichuk sisters pulled out because they were going to be playing Russians. And then I'm forgetting her name now. John Sayab Malik, I think, was not met at the airport.
From Kazakhstan, I think, right?
Yeah, yes, was not met at the airport. And then Elizabeth Pates pulled out in protest. So there's an odd number of players in the tournament. And Goryachkina did, I think Elizabeth Pates pulled out because Goryachkina did not want to redo the pairings. And the pairings have some players getting 6 whites out of 9 and others getting 6 blacks.
Yeah.
So it's
an organizer's nightmare.
Right. Yes.
Not picking somebody else up at the airport. That's just one of the.
Can you imagine if there would be offering odds on this women tournament, and you put some bets, and you discover that your player is playing 6 blacks and 3 whites, and it's not very pleasant situation.
And who do you protest to? Yeah.
Well, it's very unclear. You can protest to Bet365, but they have no control over that, right?
And I think that I've always thought that when the gambling world awakens to chess, then it's all of a sudden become as popular in the United States as it was in the former Soviet Union, and because it's the anything Americans can bet on becomes popular.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing thing. But getting the odds right so that you don't lose your shirt. That's the tricky part, and it's not surprising to me that they did one and done. They tried it and they got out because they must have lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
Most likely that's the case. Although there are some interesting bets that 365 could offer. For example, how many moves there will be in a game. Let's see, over 40 or under 40 or exactly 40.
Now, we do that over under with most sports. You predict the outcome of not only who's going to win the game, but how many points they score, the combined team score. And there's all sorts of mind-numbing number of bets that you can make on the Super Bowl. For example.
Now, there's one thing that I'm really worried about.
Okay.
So it's known that bars and beer companies make 80% of their profit off 20% of the drinkers. So it's really more like 90-10. So the people who really do drink too much generate most of the profit. And I'm worried that the same thing is going to happen with sports betting. That, you could say, most of our subscribers are casual bettors, but every once in a while you hook a whale. And the whale, will lose a lot of money regardless of how many PSAs you make about that. And a well-heeled whale is, so how much of their revenue comes from well-heeled whales who don't mind losing a lot of money? That's the real question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you raise a great subject in the terms of addiction, and there is nothing worse than exploiting someone's addiction and increasing the pain and suffering that people experience. Gambling, like drinking, has a tremendous human cost, affecting not only the people involved but their families and loved ones. And so can be a very tragic situation. So I'm of two minds about promoting anything like that as well. But it doesn't seem like we're going to go turn the corner backwards on sports betting. It seems to have taken off. And I don't think there's any putting the genie back in the bottle.
Right. And it's a headache for universities. That's where, because the university has to take a stance condoning this, but they're a big sponsor right now. They have heft. So that's the most difficult moral territory, because it's already, a moral slippery slope for a university to have so much vested in the football team and the football coach. But, there are those common maps you could find where in a lot of states, especially the South, the highest salaried public official is the public university's football coach.
Correct.
So
Mhm.
anyway,
And they generate a lot of money, not only from advertising, but also from alumni, and so it's clearly, and that then you open up the door of like, well, the athletes are the ones that are generating all this interest, and they see none of the profit.
right, yeah,
And so this has been, and this is exploding now in the news, because now college athletes can get branding rights. They can advertise for like a sportswear, Adidas or something like that,
yeah.
and get paid, which they couldn't have done 5 years ago. So
Mhm.
it's just a changing world that we live in, and
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the chess sponsors, so that my programs can be sponsored, and Sasha's program can be sponsored by, somebody that has mega corporate. And Carlson's trying to do this, and he's probably the only one that's been successful bringing in major sponsorship in terms of supporting individual projects in chess. But that's always been the dream.
Yeah, this Collingwood tournament is going to
Yeah.
be well sponsored. Jim, what would you think about sponsorship of this tournament?
Well, I think that I'm a fan of it. I'm a fan of Milan. I'm sorry he didn't make it to this show today, but
I'm
uh,
sorry
he-
myself.
he's creating something out of nothing, and it's now become something that is attracting people from
Mhm.
all over the world. And strong players are coming to Ontario, Canada, to a beautiful resort place, of course.
Yes.
But otherwise, they would not have. He's putting it on the chess map. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way. And I'm very proud of what he's accomplished. And I think supporting it is certainly in the interest of anyone who supports chess. And he's managed to get the community behind it, and also reaching out to, is it Royal Canadian Bank or some
Royal Bank of Canada.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So he is getting something done.
Yeah.
that.
And,
So Collingwood is 40 minutes north of
60.
Toronto. Yeah.
I thought they told me it was a little longer drive than I expected. I think it's over an hour drive, but I don't
probably
remember.
through back roads. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. There probably is no highway.
Mhm.
And I asked if there was an airport closer than Toronto, and I think Toronto is the closest airport.
Yeah. Toronto's clearly the closest airport. Yeah. So,
Right.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He said even from Buffalo, though, you can drive it.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, to a 3-hour drive, probably. Yeah.
Right.
So if it's good weather, if I have time, I was not able to play in the Marchand Open, just in nearby Rochester again last month. I haven't been able to play in that for 20 years. So the spring term is really busier than the autumn term usually for me.
Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah. But there is something about what Sasha was saying about playing over the board. It is a different
Right.
experience.
Yeah.
So
And I did not have time to visit the Reykjavik Open, which is going on right now. I had a standing invitation, VIP invitation 3 years ago. The pandemic, of course, canceled it.
yes.
But I can show a game from there.
Oh,
Okay.
So
Let's see.
this is an
It's gotta
interesting.
be on your checklist, your bucket list, though, Reykjavik.
Yes, Reykjavik should be on my bucket list. Yes, but
Right.
Anyway, so this
I
is a
think,
game.
Milan showed up finally.
Joe, I can cut back to
Yeah,
back
no,
to
no,
that.
let's see.
This will be fairly fast. It's just an entertaining game where Ivanchuk playing a 2460 rated grandmaster, coming up from India, and the lower rated player does exactly what you should do: carry the fight against the established player. And we're going to see how far White carries the fight in this game. Now it's symmetrical, except White's being cut out. But now White is going to start making some challenging moves. It's an interesting opening. Okay,
Right.
so now, so this is the I forget the name of this formation for Black, but the hedgehog.
Yeah, it's so standard. Yeah, it's no weaknesses.
Right, no weaknesses. Laying back. But you can attack the hedgehog, and here we go. White does. This is carrying the fight to it. So let's see, is the hedgehog going to collapse? Well, all right. So we fall back and defend our back rank. Now comes another pawn. Black strikes back. This the hedgehog break, and as of now, black is okay, according to the engine. But okay, white keeps on attacking. And whoa! Wow, that's funny. It's such a natural move.
And
now,
it didn't look bad to me right away. Yeah.
No, it did not look bad. And the move that the engine wants is Rook C7 just looks unnatural to me, or E5, which gives a weakness. So it's very surprising that this is a losing move according to the engine. But here we go. Now white is coming in.
White is in. That's what the engines are saying. Yes.
Yeah, okay. The army marching behind the infantrymen on G5 and H5. Now, so black plays E5. Now white sacrifices.
Goodness.
Okay. So white has sacrificed the knight, and so now
Rook C7 too little, too late.
Well, Rook C7 too little, too late. Now the engine just says H6, softening up the diagonal, but there's nothing wrong with what white did. The opportunity will be lost on the next move. So it's very, very strange. You wouldn't ordinarily think that in order to keep your attack going, you have to capture black's bishop and help black's development. But one thing is, when you capture the bishop, black can't capture with the queen because the knight's
the knight, yeah.
So the rook, this is a little awkward.
It is.
And then the engine is just calculated, but this is very difficult for a human being, that with this rook coming up, black has no defense. Like, this is not at all obvious to me. But part of the problem is that black can't get the queen back into the game in time to defend. Black can't really defend F7 here, because D7, playing the queen to D7 doesn't defend it. E6 has a problem that it's pin and hanging.
Right.
So anyway, so this is just awkward position for black, but white played a more direct means of trying to attack. White played queen F5, ought to hitting the pawn directly, and black can't defend it. Problem is that taking it is not a huge souvenir for white. So now white has sacrificed a bishop. Okay, well, white sacrifices another bishop.
Whoa.
3 pieces sacrificed. What's the follow-up? Well, the follow-up is now you have a rook for 4 pieces. So I thought readers would like to see this. There is a position with 4 pieces for a rook. Now this, however, is...
this seems chaotic to me and unnecessary.
It's a white play E4, take that. So it was covering mate. Now white's trying to attack.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Yeah, something like...
Yeah, I think Ken may have frozen.
Yeah, it's too little, too late, I guess.
So now white still, this is like tilting. Yeah, okay, if I frozen when white is now... it's just so much material down. Anyway, okay. All right, back to you guys.
Okay.
All right.
A few minutes ago, we were talking a lot about upcoming Collingwood Chess Festival. And Milan, since you are the organizer of first one a year ago, and today I would like to know what are the news about the chess festival. And also I'm planning to be with Nava in Collingwood next weekend, and maybe next chess program we can run right from the place where it's going to be held. Just to show.
That would be lovely. The Collingwood Chess Festival, I named it after my father, who taught me how to play chess. And so this is our second year. Last year was we call the first annual, because my wife and I are prepared to spend $60,000 to make it an annual event. And so we want to call it Collingwood, the chess capital of Canada. And any community can call itself the capital of anything. So to make it legitimate, what we need is to have an award, like we got the Arthur Award for Jim, the Eden Foundation. So thank you very much for that. The money is nice, but the recognition and the legitimacy that it confers on us is even nicer. And so then after 2 years of operation, we would qualify for an Ontario Trillium grant. Ontario Trillium grants go from $60,000 and up. So we have to really prepare it carefully. And we have a meeting coming up with a man who specializes in getting grants for people. And so we have that meeting coming up. And so that if we get any grant from the Ontario Trillium Foundation, our prize fund will be large enough for us to call ourselves legitimately the chess capital of Canada, Collingwood the chess capital of Canada. And right now, the biggest prize fund in Canadian chess is $50,000. So if we exceed that, we will be able to call ourselves that, the chess capital of Canada, legitimately.
I've got a question for you, though. Am I right? Is that a Romanian crest that you're wearing on your hat?
Oh, this is a Serbian hat.
Oh, Serbian.
And I was born in Serbia. I was born in Belgrade, and both my parents were Serbians. And the Serbians have contributed an enormous amount to chess. Yes. We were speaking to Jim Eady about that. And so, for instance, the Encyclopedia of Chess Openings, 5 volumes, published in Belgrade more than 70 years ago.
And the formats.
Encyclopedia Shahovsky Otvaranya. Yeah.
So Serbians contribute to that volume, to those 5 volumes, right behind Russians. Russian, understandably, contributes the most. They have overall there are 30 editors in that Encyclopedia of Chess, and Russia contributes the largest number of them. The second largest number is from Serbia, population 8 million people, population of the Greater Toronto area, ahead of the United States, ahead of Germany, ahead of France, ahead of all of these other chess-playing countries. So I wear this Serbian hat now, and Sasha, I'm going to wear it at our next show, Talking Head show, next Wednesday, because Lululemon has made it all right for people to wear anything. I like that idea of Lululemon, and so we'll discuss it at our next show about as an investment and what Morningstar has to say about it. But we had the largest chess tournament on the planet is the Tata Steel Festival in Holland, in a town that you never heard of. But this attracts people from all over the place, the Tata Steel Festival. When this was launched some 80 years ago, they had 8 participants. Now the numbers are much larger. And so we were hoping for 8 participants last year. We got 55, and including 5 international masters, including about 1% of chess players have a rating of 2,000 and above. Almost a third of the participants in our chess program had that rating. This year, we're getting 3 participants from Iran.
Wow!
Imagine Iran. Yeah, never mind.
I mean, who are living in Iran, not expatriates.
They're living in Iran, yes, and they are members of the FIDE members, and they participated in tournaments all over the place. So this is not a scam. This is a legitimate thing. So I'm very hopeful that someday we will soon be able to call Collingwood legitimately the chess capital of Canada.
Is one of the Iranian players Hushestran, who lived in Calgary for a while.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, there was the Romanian player, Iranian player whom I knew, who was Salil Hossein Hedran, something like that. I had to look up his exact name.
Good.
So chess is really a totally international game. I was talking to James about this, how it's that way because it uses symbols, and anything that uses symbols is universal. Say our numbers from 1 to 9 plus 0. Anybody on the planet can read those numbers in his own language.
Right. That was the Chess Informator's innovation, I think.
That's correct.
55 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope, Milan, when you will get Trillium grant, you will be able to offer prizes for the best females in tournament and for best seniors as well. That would
Best seniors is
be even more interesting. Yeah.
So the man that we are meeting with, we have a Zoom meeting with this man who makes his living helping people get grants. They get so many grants out there, but you have to apply for them correctly.
Yeah.
So we have a Zoom meeting coming up with him to make sure that we submit our application in a way that will interest Trillium Corporation.
Of course. Yeah, you would show demographics of the players. There are young players under 10, and there are old players over 80, and it's a cross-communal thing. So I think you will get it.
You're
I'm
doing the
83.
right thing.
I'm 83, but I bet I could pass for 82 if the light was right.
You don't look a day over 81.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
No,
So-
I think you're doing the right thing by consulting an expert and getting these kinds of grants and things like that. Because chess players, we don't understand that part of the game of what it takes. The organizers really get overlooked in how much they have to do to make these tournaments happen. So congratulations to you for all the effort and all that you're putting into it. But also we tend to lack the skill set for grant writing and to put it in the best terms that a company would say, hey, yeah, I would fund this. Because there's a lot of good attributes that would be valuable.
Yeah. There has to be something in it for the company that's funded.
Of
There
course.
has to be something in it for them. So you give to get.
Mhm.
And so good job and good luck.
I hope I could come. My busy academic year allows me to cross the border from Buffalo. Have you been in Buffalo recently, or?
I was passing Buffalo just about a couple of months ago when I was visiting my grandson in Boston area, where he was studying in university. So I crossed Buffalo, but then we stayed overnight in Syracuse. And
Well, Ken and I remember the time when we didn't have to have a passport.
Yes.
Oh, yes, that's
Correct.
right.
Yeah.
I
Now,
remember that time too.
there is a past president of the United States who would not be allowed into Canada today.
That's right. Yes.
But any of you would.
Mhm.
Any of you would.
Yes.
Well, we'll find out in a couple of days what's happened with our past president. On Tuesday, we will hear all 34 charges against him. And,
I'm just hoping that he's not allowed into the campaign for office.
Right.
That's
no, he will continue to run. Doesn't matter.
Oh yes, I know.
There are two interesting things. I find two interesting things about this. It's a little bit off topic, chess, but just give me a minute. And one is that it shows that nobody is above the law, including the president. In a true democracy, that's the case. Certainly not the case in a lot of dictatorships around the world where, yes, the dictator is above the law. So that's one thing. And the other thing that I found astounding, that Trump gets so much support. He continues to get an incredible amount of support by intelligent people, but they see the world differently than I do, or than we do. We see the world as we are and not as it is. And
Well, there's also the Tucker Carlson phenomena where you believe one thing but you say another, and you say it onto the airwaves where people hear it and they believe what you're saying rather than what you're thinking. So some of this manipulation is part of the problem in the United States, certainly, and I'm sure around the world, but we call it propaganda in other countries. And so the use of propaganda is devastating to a democracy, where you want facts and the truth, and you try to hold the journalism to a higher standard than what we've been subject to over the last decade or two.
You can compare actually Carlson to Russian propagandists.
yes,
Because you don't need to think. You have to open your mouth and say the right words. Your thinking actually is detrimental to what you have to say. So it's better if you are not thinking and just.
I left Yugoslavia with my parents in 1952. I was 12 years old then, and at that time in Yugoslavia, you could go to jail for listening to the Voice of America.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we think of Yugoslavia as one of those safe places because people from the U.S. could go play Russians in Yugoslavia when I was learning the game.
Mhm.
And so I always thought of Yugoslavia, and of course, the informants and that kind of stuff. I always thought of it, but it's good to have that historical perspective that it wasn't always free. And
No.
Well, Marshal Tito was a benevolent dictator. And one of the things that he achieved was to start the non-aligned movement, which is the largest movement on the planet. Non-aligned nations are not in the pockets of Russia nor in the pockets of the United States. And part of the reason why they're the largest movement on the planet is because India belongs to it. But the non-aligned, they don't pay attention to what the United States says. They don't pay attention to what Russia says, Soviet Union says, former Soviet Union. They're completely independent. And the fact that Tito started that, he was able to do that as a benevolent dictator. The trouble with benevolent dictators is succession is a problem. And you could see that happening in Yugoslavia. The country fell apart after Tito died.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there were just too many contradictions in the country. There were many states with different religion, different social fabrics, national problems. And I was expecting something similar would happen in Russia.
Yes.
But Russia, the Soviet Union, by 1991, it was so weak that there was no desire from anybody to fight to retain the Soviet Union. Nobody cared anymore about Soviet Union. Nobody fought for its existence, and it just fell apart. Actually, I'm not so sure that even one person has died as a result of dissolution of Soviet Union. However, now the thinking is that what's happening right now in Ukraine, this is a real war that should have happened 30 years ago, but didn't. So it's happening now.
Well, we can't be too comfortable here in the United States because there's a fragmentation of our society as well.
Yes.
So we always look around and do these comparisons and say, well, look what's happened here. But, no one is perfectly comfortable in their countries. They all have beefs of some sort, big or small. And this is one of the things that we've always thought of as chess provides this bridge where we don't care what country you're from, we don't care what language you speak. All you care, if you want to be in the chess community, all you have to do is play chess. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes, and we've just seen this, Ken mentioned this, someone protesting in a tournament, not playing because they have to play Russian opponents and that sort of stuff. So when we start to mix these types of things get so blurry and crazy. And there's no moral compass anymore.
Oh, that's true. You know that after the Second World War, Israeli orchestras would not play Beethoven because Beethoven was
it was Wagner.
Yeah.
Wagner
but
also.
Beethoven maybe too, yeah.
Yeah. So
Beethoven.
Wagner is still to this day, so.
Yeah, that's...
Now they're playing Wagner. Beethoven, I never heard that they would not play Beethoven. If you don't play Beethoven, then you don't play any German music. But without German classical music, there is no classical music, period. You might as well.
Well, there's Italian, but
no.
I know that.
There is Italian music, there is Russian music, there is French music, and so on. But the fundamental classical music is German. So if you don't play Beethoven, you might. Okay, Wagner is a different story because he was openly anti-Semitic and he published his stuff. That's a different story. Beethoven, to my knowledge, never published any anti-Semitic publications. At least I'm not aware of that. And if you don't play Beethoven, you just don't play any German music. And I don't think that you might as well play jazz or something else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it just shows that it's impossible, although we have these standards and we try to live up to them, that we can't separate activities like chess from the political realities that we live in, whether it's ethnic tensions, whether it's political tensions. Obviously we don't care about economic systems and things like that. But, when people are going to war, when there's an invasion, you can't just turn your other cheek.
Right. Right. So I'm dismayed that Wimbledon is allowing Russian players. So I'm it's
Yeah, with certain conditions. They should not say anything supporting Putin or Russia or anything like this.
Have
So
the flag, yes.
yeah. It's,
And the war-
but it's an interesting decision because at the same time, so exactly in classical music, Buffalo has welcomed back the young pianist Ilya Malofeyev,
Yeah,
who
right.
did make a statement against the war, and this it's reasonable thing, but that was a question of discussion around here.
Has a war ever been fought for any reason other than economics or religion?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah, you'd be hard pressed to find any other reason than economics and religion.
Mhm.
but okay, this Ukrainian war is not about religion or economics.
Well,
It's-
isn't it to take over the Russian the manufacturing territory in Ukraine?
All right, but you see, the war is changing, though. You see, at the beginning, it was special operations. They wanted to take over the government and put friendly ruler of Ukraine, friendly to Russia. Now, when that didn't work out, they started a war to grab the territories. But war was still unpopular in Russia. They were thinking, okay, it's Putin's thing, and okay, let him do whatever he wants. Now, lately, Russian people started openly support the war. What's happened is
Oh,
they now believe that, well, probably the war shouldn't have started in the first place. Probably it was a mistake. But it is what it is. It is a real war right now. And if it's a real war, we must support our president, regardless what, and we must win the
My
war.
country,
and
right
we
or wrong.
must kill as many Ukrainians as possible.
Exactly, my country.
Because they are guilty. If they wouldn't fight Russians, so the war would be over in a few days, and we would continue to live like always before the war. Everything would be fine. So it was Ukrainians who are now guilty fighting Putin and Russia. So they all have to be killed and destroyed. So
Russia.
this is,
Sasha, you probably understand the situation better than most people, better than anybody here.
okay.
So I'm going to ask you about the role of intermarriage in this war. There's a great deal of intermarriage. People are shooting their cousins, their brothers-in-law. And so what can you say about the role of intermarriage in this war?
Go about 100 years ago into Russian civil war, which started right after the revolution in 1917.
Right, yes.
There were brothers fighting brothers. There were, for example, sons were against their parents and killing them, actually. If you remember a book called in Russian Tikhy Don,
Yes.
there was a movie.
Quiet flows the Don.
Absolutely, and also the movie was quite good. You will really appreciate how it's all done. But I wouldn't overestimate the meaning of intermarriage because,
Well, we had the Red Badge of Courage that talked about our
Yes.
Civil War.
Yes.
And,
well, you see, there are a lot of Ukrainians of ethnic Russians, for example, who live in Ukraine now for generations. They are all now against Russia and against Putin. There are a lot of Ukrainians who live for generations in Russia. And of course, they're still ethnic Ukrainians, if you will, but they are on the side of Russia and Putin and so on. So I can't really figure out that.
yeah, that's hard to
Yeah.
imagine.
Didn't Peter the Great start expanding Russia to protect his borders? And he kept expanding and expanding it until it became a Soviet Union, which fell apart under Gorbachev, who people who think like I do find Gorbachev to be one of the saints of the 20th century, but he ranks at the very bottom of appreciation of Russian leaders when they survey Russia, because the Russian Empire fell apart under his watch.
I would disagree with that, because in December of 1991, when that exactly happened, there were three rulers of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, and they are three founding members of the Soviet Union in 1922. And all three of them agreed that this country ceased to exist. So three of them dissolved Soviet Union regardless of wishes of Gorbachev or Bush Senior or just anybody else. There was nothing could be done unless Gorbachev would follow a strategy of, say, Stalin, for example, and would arrest them instantly, right away.
I think history will be kinder to Gorbachev than the present, maybe.
That would be that Gorbachev.
He introduced glasnost and perestroika.
Yes, he did.
Very
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah. And does Putin see himself as Peter the Great now?
Yes.
Maybe he's trying to be Peter the Great, but I think he's Vladimir the First.
Well, I think he very much wanted the Great to be added to his name in history.
Well, he wanted to become the uniter of all Russian territories back into quasi-Soviet Union, if possible. And this is war in Ukraine. This is all what it's about. Because if he would take over Ukraine, then Belarus would fall very easily. It's controlled by Russia anyway. So now you have three founding members back. So now you can talk about establishment of a new Soviet Union. Kazakhstan would follow the suit already. But Ukrainians, that's why you see.
Well, Catherine the Great wanted to Europeanize Russia to a large extent. She tried to introduce like the Hermitage, the art, and all of that sort of stuff. And Ukraine really was the most European. And I think, taking it back and making it Russian is there's a symbolic sense to it as well as a practical sense or an economic sense to doing it. So he sees it going away to Europe, and that infuriates Putin's sense of history.
She wanted to westernize Russia. In her court, many of the very top people in her court spoke Italian and couldn't speak Russian.
Or French.
Educated people spoke French or Italian, not Russian.
She had Leonhard Euler.
Peasants spoke Russian, right?
Well, now we see that Ukraine is traditionally was never part of Asiatic influence, where it's very strong in Russia. You see, historically speaking, Ukraine was a part of Polish Lithuanian Union, and so historically it always part of the West. It was not part of the East, where Russia was for 250 years under Tatars and Mongols, never had the Renaissance.
Very important point, Sasha.
It's an Asian culture. Never mind that they look like Europeans, but they are not. They're Asians.
Ken, you showed us a game from Ivanchuk. Was Ivanchuk from the Ukraine?
Yes, of course. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Is she not from Slovenia?
I'm going to come off. No, I think Ivanchuk is Ukraine.
Yeah, he's Ukrainian, and I remember I met Ivanchuk in person first time in 1987 in New York Open tournament.
Do you have to go, Ken? Is that what I'm sensing here, or do you? Because I have a question for you.
I'll Google it.
Ivanchuk was such a talented player, and if we get back into the chess and what's dramatic about it now, people would say, at least around in my circle, that nerves got in his way. That he was a brilliant player, but he would not meet the pressures that some more successful players would. Is that a valid statement to make?
I don't know. I'm going to break off, actually.
So Ken, thank you so much.
I need to go off. Yep.
Okay, we'll see you next Saturday.
I thought you might.
Good meeting you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, good meeting you, Milan. I hope to see you later this month. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I remember when in 1987 in New York, Grandmaster Tukmakov that we knew from Odessa, he introduced Ivanchuk to us, to me and Anna, and he introduced him as a future world champion.
Yes, he was that talented.
And he played so well in this tournament. He scored, I think, 8.5 out of 9, something like this, almost 100% score. He played extremely well, and very attacking chess. He knew all the openings extremely well, and yeah, I think he had potential to be a world champion. But unfortunately, he lived in times of Kasparov and Karpov at the beginning of his career, then the Kramnik and others,
Yes.
Gelfand and others, and he just he didn't have probably consistency enough to perform on a very high level, the candidates tournaments or so on. But he still won many international
Oh,
tournaments.
yes. But
And
you would think
he
that
won Linares a couple of times at least.
you would think it's a sporting aspect of it, not nervousness. That was his ultimate downfall. It was like he wasn't consistent enough, is what you just said.
I think that's the reason.
Well, you know, in Serbia, there is Svetozar Gligoric,
Yes.
and Gligoric has beaten every world champion, but
Yes.
never was one himself.
Famous player. Yes.
Yeah, he was very solid player.
Very solid.
And a very decent human being, by the way.
Very decent. And he was chosen to be an arbiter later when he stopped playing. He was an arbiter in many substantial, like world champion. Oh, this famous world championship between Karpov and Korchnoi.
And
No.
nobody seemed to have a grudge against him, which is always this mark.
Sorry, Karpov and Kasparov, which was adjourned after 48 games. Gligoric was an arbiter of that match.
Mhm.
But he couldn't do much about it.
But he was very, very well respected. That was the
He
key.
was.
You know,
Yeah.
that was the point that you want to make, as well as a great player.
Very
And that's not always the same. You know,
And he was a good musician as well, and very, very well regarded actually.
well-rounded human being. Yeah.
Chess ought to be a mandatory subject in schools,
It should be.
and,
Yeah.
and many schools have it as extracurricular activity, which is okay.
Mhm.
It's a start. But is it mandatory in Azerbaijan, for instance, or in
Armenia, yes. Azerbaijan,
Armenia,
not
yeah.
sure. But it's very popular in Azerbaijan, so I think many schools there probably have it as a curriculum. But Armenia, I know that it's almost mandatory in probably all schools. That's why Armenia is doing so well in
Yeah,
chess.
they are doing quite well. Yes.
Yeah, and a small
Yeah.
population too. That's another small country which focuses,
Absolutely.
like Canada and hockey. Canada's got a population of somewhere between 30-40 million people, dominates hockey and has forever. Everybody in the backyard has got a hockey rink.
Yeah.
And in Serbia, there are clay tennis courts all over the place. The clay courts are the cheapest to put together. They need the most maintenance, but it doesn't matter over there in Serbia. So, they produce tennis players. And in the countries where chess is mandatory, you see them producing a lot of champions and a lot of top level.
And always in, like downhill skiing, you would say the Norwegians in the Olympics. There was always, some countries,
So many medals, yeah.
yeah. Oh, so they're all noted for something and something that they could be proud of. But the Soviet Union, and under the time of Stalin, correct me if I'm wrong, Sasha, but they made it part of their propaganda to make chess to say that they're superior to the
Well,
West.
not only chess, but all sport.
Everything.
And chess was treated as a sport in this.
Anything that will make the system look good, they
Yes.
support it.
You remember, Milan, maybe you remember in 1952, there was the Summer Olympiad, I think in Finland.
Uh-huh.
And in the soccer final, Yugoslavia played against Soviet Union.
Uh-huh.
Now, Soviet Union was built on the CSKA, the Central Soviet Army Club. It was the strongest team at that time in Soviet Union. So most of the players in Soviet team were from that club. And Yugoslavs beat Soviet Union in that match. Now, what's happened in Soviet Union? Stalin was still alive, right? So the CSKA was absolutely destroyed. There was no longer this club in existence. A lot of people were severely punished, including being sent to Siberia and so on. So if you take cross tables of soccer championships of Russia, you see in, say, 1948, the champion is CSKA. So 49 CSKA, 50 CSKA, 51 CSKA. 52 No, CSKA, so somebody, Dynamo or Spartak, somebody champion. And 53, not CSKA in the championship. So again, Spartak or some other team became champion. And only after his death, starting from 54, CSKA came back and started to play in the Soviet championships.
Yeah,
This is talking about sport in Soviet Union.
It's like losing to Bobby Fischer, like the guy like Taimanov.
You remember what happened to Taimanov? He was stripped of all his titles and stipend.
You know, as an example, in music, David Oistra was a top violinist, and his son also, Igor Oistra.
Yep.
And David Oistra was Jewish. And the Russians don't have much room for Jewish people. But if they can perform the way David Oistra does and make the system look good, they support him. You know, I was at a concert one time in Toronto where he played, and a string broke on his violin. So he went backstage and came out just minutes later and continued playing. And William Littler, who was the Toronto Daily Star music critic, he said he had never seen a change of string that fast. What Oistra did was he went backstage and got his other Stradivarius violin.
There you go.
The Soviet Union let him keep two. And he had a lovely Dasha.
You always need a backup. Yeah.
He lived very well. He made the system look good. Yeah. Ballet dancer, same thing. Baryshnikov and so on, that make the system look good, get huge support. So you can make a very decent living if you're a sculptor in any of those regimes and make sculptures of the dictator.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to any Renaissance painter. You know, if you wanted to paint a religious figure, there was someone who was going to be able to sponsor you. So, you know, all of these societies have those things in common. You know, if you're doing something that makes you look good, makes the leaders look good, then you make it.
Jim, are you trying to say that very soon we will see sculptures of Donald Trump?
I'm saying that I hope against hope that it's not the case. But we were very narrowly going down that path, and I think the rule of law is still alive, and we'll see. Keep our eyes open, because these guys they learned from Trump's mistakes. Trump is trying to be an autocrat, trying to be president for life, but he made some mistakes, and I think there are people out there that are just a little bit smarter and less offensive, that might be saying, "Oh, I can do this. I can."
But we needed a porn star to make things look good, didn't we?
But you know what? I don't exclude possibilities that by Tuesday Trump will become a fugitive. He will not attend the.
Oh no, he will Trump will certainly go for the drama of being arrested. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I think. Absolutely, and I think
I'm back. Yeah.
His supporters will just have a field day with it, and there'll be a lot of strife and discontent in the United States over it. Very polarizing, but I think what we're talking about now is not a 50-50 polarization, but a 2/3, 1/3.
Yeah,
and 1/3 of the country is still a very significant amount of people.
Astounding.
There are a lot of people here who think that Candy, the moderator, and Sandy, the hurricane, cost Romney in 2012, which was incredibly insulting to the mass of our voters. And they think, similarly, the Twitter files business, that the Hunter Biden Lapton story getting delayed for 24 hours cost Trump in 2020. Overlooking, well, the Comey letter really did have a huge impact.
That
in
did.
2016.
Yeah, and that was unprecedented and a very strange development. But it was the Hillary emails, I think, that stuck in my craw. How much they made out of those, and what Trump actually has done.
You know,
far more significant.
The countries to which we admire greatly, the Scandinavian countries, are all small countries. When you get a large country, the United States is the fourth most populous country on the planet. China, India, Indonesia, United States. You get everything, some of the best and some of the worst. So I've been saying for a long time, at their worst, America leads the way. At their best, they also lead the way. If you take a look at the Nobel Prize winners, how many of them are Americans? Yes, they come from somewhere else, but they go to America to flower. When you take a look at
I say that about California. if everybody comes here to make their fortune and then goes someplace else and complains about it.
Yeah, that's a fair.
You take a look at the 10 best universities on the planet, 6 are American. Doesn't that say something? Yeah.
Well, I think with that, we will conclude our program
Okay.
for today. And we look forward to next Saturday. And Milan, hopefully, you will be able to arrange our program right from the place where the tournament will take place.
That'd be fun to see.
Hopefully, good. I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Sasha.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
See you then.
Goodbye to everybody.
Bye bye.
Great week. Bye-bye, everybody.